Hi there, come on in. You know, the ice is just about gone. Ice fishing season is practically over for most of us, and spring and summer fishing is around the corner. How is it going to be this season? Bob Garner and I have put together some information to give you a forecast. And if you're a gun owner who owns a semi-automatic shotgun or rifle, you're going to be interested in the feature we're going to do in the second half of the show. We're going to talk about this assault on the assault weapons and how it might spread into an assault on sporting weapons. We're going to explain what these rifles are all about. So you stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. Let's open our forecast for fishing in the summer of '89 with the species that are the most sensitive, most temperamental of our game fish to environmental conditions. That's our little stream trout. Brooks, browns, and rainbows that inhabit the clear, cool streams. The forecast? It's good. The drought last summer didn't generally affect trout streams in a detrimental way because trout streams have to be cold year-round and they're generally spring-fed. If they warm up, trout won't live there. Michigan has 100 miles of what is called quality fishing water. That means flies only, in some cases catch and release, for those anglers whose prime joy is battling a fish and not eating it later. These waters will be less crowded than the other streams as a rule. The trout might average a little larger, maybe a few more, but there are many, many fine trout streams throughout Michigan that produce fish for fly fishermen and worm dunkers. Not a bad one, huh? Ooh, saved my worm too. To sum it up, stream trout fishing this summer will be none the worse for wear due to the drought, and I'd put it on my schedule for a day or two if I were you. Salmon fishing. Here's the big question mark in our fishing forecast. Frankly, the question isn't how it's going to be. The question is why it isn't going to be as good as it used to. It seems to be the somewhat mysterious changes that occur in nature when birds or animals or fish establish new balances in new environments. Alewives are diminishing. Salmon are eating more chubs and smelt, staying out deeper. We have many more recreational fishermen and charter boats than we did 10 years ago. But with less fish now, it'll be easier to get a limit this season. Because of this, instead of 5 Chinook, the limit is now 3. 3 of any species, 5 total trout and salmon. So tone down your expectations for Great Lakes salmon in '89. But what about steelhead trout? Have they been in trouble too? No, not in the same way. We should have some of the best runs ever coming up the Grand and Manistee rivers this year due to big plants a few years ago. The steelhead have gotten slammed pretty hard in the deeper water offshore in the fall when salmon anglers weren't connecting in close, but there have been plenty left to catch in the rivers. There will be a lamprey weir across the Pere Marquette this year that'll keep steelhead from going up that river, but as I said, the Manistee and Grand should be particularly good. Right now, by the way, tributaries on the Grand have steelhead on the beds, so the spring run is underway. New this year, that 3 steelhead limit, 5 salmon and trout together, no more than 3 of one species. That means 3 steelhead as well. But with fish this size, that give this much fight and such tasty fillets, who needs more than 3 a day anyhow? Switching gears to bass. There's no real big news for this species. Plenty of largemouth in our lakes. The drought didn't affect them up north here the way they did down south. Smallmouth bass in the cooler lakes and along Great Lakes shorelines should be in good supply. While we were researching this forecast for our national show, we learned that Alabama has been planting that Florida strain of largemouths for about 15 years, and the state record is now up to 16.5 pounds. It gets broken just about every year. In Michigan, an 8-pound largemouth usually tops our trophy book each year, and the prospects of improving this size just aren't in the cards. Florida bass are a particular southern strain, and the long growing season down south helps contribute to that big size. But there will be good bass fishing this summer in Michigan, just about like last year. Plenty of bass to go around. Panfish are sort of the same story. In fact, largemouth and smallmouth bass are members of the sunfish family. The problem we have in Michigan is that our latitude is the northernmost part of the range of fish like bluegill. We have lots of lakes with lots of bluegills, but they tend to be rather small. Bluegill provide food for the larger predator fish, especially bass and northern pike, but there are lakes that produce larger bluegill on the average, and they tend to be lakes that don't get as much fishing pressure. That's why some of the northern lower peninsula lakes, especially around the Traverse City area, come up with fishing award winners every season. I know it's a common saying, bigger bait gets bigger fish, but more anglers are going to ice fishing bait, wax worms on a teardrop, for example, and catching dandy bluegill down deep in the summer. As long as you're fishing the holes where the big bluegill are and not the shallower water where those little bait-stealing little ones are, it should work. I'm going to try it this summer. And crappies? Well, the big ones will be caught this spring in the next 2 months when they come into canals and shallow bays to spawn. Panfish aren't big, but they're popular and they're great in the frying pan. Northern pike, rather prevalent in many Michigan lakes, from the Ohio border throughout the UP. They're fun to catch, not too difficult with a sucker minnow under a bobber, but a lot of pike seem to hover just under that 20-inch size limit. We learned that Minnesota has battled the small pike problem by limiting the catch to 6 pike under 24 inches and only 1 pike over 24 inches in a day's catch. The idea is to keep the eaters and toss back most of the big mature spawners. In Minnesota, seems to work. Michigan runs a straight 20-inch minimum, 5-a-day limit. But this idea of keeping smaller fish and releasing the big ones if you don't want to have them mounted, that's an idea that's catching on and has a lot of appeal. I like the idea myself, even with walleye, which by the way look real good for 89. It wasn't until 1988 that 14-pounders began showing up in the Master Angler Awards. We had 2, and already a 14-pound 2-ouncer has been entered for 89. Any lake connected to Lake Michigan should be terrific this year, but as Mark Martin has taught us, the really big walleye feed at night in these inland lakes. But Saginaw Bay will produce some big daytime walleye, so will Lake Erie. Look for this year to be the last for the 10 walleye limit in Michigan waters of Lake Erie, though. We're over our quota compared to Ohio. All in all, 1989 should be good or better than last year for most types of fishing. No drought is predicted, and think about releasing those big spawners if you don't want to have them mounted. Keep those eaters, though, and good luck this summer.
Gary Burke of Coleman used a homemade spinner and a 12-inch sucker to catch this 42-inch, 20-pound, 9-ounce northern in Big Bay Denok. Here's a 24-inch, 7-pound, 3-ounce largemouth that Robert Schroeder of Grand Rapids caught in Manistee County on a night crawler. John Savoy of Sault Ste. Marie caught this 9-pound, 9-ounce, good-eating but ugly burbot in the St. Mary's River. At almost 11.5 pounds, Michael Rao of Wells' Little Bay Denok walleye was 31.5 inches long. And John Schlott of Lapeer went to Menominee County to take this turkey with a 9-inch beard. Here's a massive 8-point with an over 20-inch spread. Rick Newland of Ravenna first saw it watching 2 other hunters.
Well, when I first saw this deer, it was standing and watching 2 hunters walk away. And so I couldn't shoot, and I had to wait for the deer to move. So the deer jumped 3 times, and then I shot it.
So why was it watching the other hunters walk away?
Just watching them, I don't know. The hunters were walking away, didn't even know the deer was there. Then when I got the deer home, I was taking it off the truck, and it fell down on top of me, and got one of the points in the eye.
You did?
Right. This right there, my shooting eye.
Was it a serious wound? Or?
Scratched the cornea in 4 places, but it's all right now.
Well, we were all glad to hear the happy ending to Rick Newland's story. So for taking the buck of a lifetime and far more importantly, having his eyesight back, let's make Rick Newland of Ravenna our Michigan Outdoors Big Buck Hunter of the Week. The EED virus has virtually shut down the Marquette fish hatchery. Now, the hatchery will be going through a cleansing process to try and rid it of the virus. The lake trout broodstock housed there will not be destroyed. Those big fish will be planted in several lakes, but the infected young brook trout, lake trout, and splake will have to be destroyed. Brown trout and rainbows will be planted to hopefully take up some of the slack. More bad news. The Betsy River, along a fabled trout and steelhead river, is suffering terribly from a dam failure at Thompsonville. When the dam broke, it sent untold amounts of silt and sand downstream. It could choke off great fishing opportunities for years. Sichuan pheasants are being released in several areas in Livingston and Clinton counties this week. Oakland County's Rose Township will get pheasants in the next couple of weeks. 2 Michigan DNR employees are in Kansas trapping prairie chickens. Now, they're hoping to catch about 100 chickens to trade with Iowa for a mixture of 200 Hungarian partridge and wild-trapped ringneck pheasants.
How good are white-tailed deer at using natural camouflage? 6 veteran hunters combed a square mile of forest where 39 deer were fenced. It took the hunters 4 days to spot 1 buck. I'd say that's pretty darn good at using natural camouflage.
There's an archery tournament tomorrow through Sunday at Wyandottes Yak Arena. Saturday events include a turkey hunter workshop sponsored by the Blue Water chapter of the Turkey Federation at the Lapeer County Sportsman's Club, and a Pheasants Forever banquet at Wilson Hall in Hillsdale. Saturday and Sunday you can catch the action of beagles and bunnies at the Great Lakes Beagle Club near Otisville. The Michigan Big Game Hunters Association holds their banquet Sunday at the V.F.W. Hall in Dearborn Heights. There's a Ducks Unlimited Red Cedar chapter banquet a week from Friday at MSU's Kellogg Center. And this weekend at Fred Trost Hunting and Fishing Museum, the unedited tape of the Hunting Awards banquet of 1989 will run continuously. The museum is on US 27, just north of the State Police Post at Houghton Lake. April 30th, that's a Sunday, there will be a benefit wild game dinner for Outdoors Forever at the Masters Restaurant in Madison Heights. Master Chef Pat McGuire will prepare a gourmet dinner. Fred and Kathy will be there. That's April 30th at Madison Heights. Fred Trost Outdoor Fair is set for June 23rd, 24th, and 25th at the high school in Houghton Lake. The shooting show, archery events, dog demonstrations, exhibitors with outdoor equipment will all be back this year. Now, the fair is strictly hunting, fishing, and shooting. We hope to see you there. If you missed a number, call the Michigan Travel Bureau toll-free on Friday during working hours.
A number of viewers have asked me to comment on this proposed ban on military assault-type weapons. What's the matter with it? Well, you have to understand a little bit of how guns are made, how they operate. Last week we got a tape from the NRA demonstrating different types of weapons by a police officer. Let's take a look at it.
Hello, my name is Leroy Pyle. I'm a police officer in San Jose, California. And during most of my 25-year career, I've been involved in firearms training, a little training, education, and also competition. As a result, I've also gotten involved with private citizens using firearms, a lot of safety, schools, and a lot of competition. I'm familiar with some of the controversy involved with firearms now, a lot of emotions. In fact, we're about an hour and a half away from Stockton, California, where I'm sure you're aware of a recent tragedy. I don't mean to belittle that tragedy. I can share those emotions. About a week after that, I had 2 of my partners killed on the streets of San Jose, so I understand the emotions. But part of my job as a police officer for all these years has been to cut through the emotions and get to the facts. That's the only way you can settle an issue. You have to have the truth. I'd like to share a little bit of the facts with you because I honestly feel that some of the emotions here have impaired any ability to make a good judgment. I have some firearms available that I'd like to show you. I have some in fully automatic, I have some in semi-automatic, and I have some that were designed for hunting. I'd like to show you a comparison, and I think if you have a little better understanding of what these firearms really are for, what they do, what they look like, you too can maybe cut through some of the emotions and make what I hope would be a good decision. The confusion and misunderstanding over firearms is a result of the mislabeling. I have firearms here on the table. I have a fully automatic assault rifle, and many times the press likes to use those words, trigger words if I might add, assault rifle, military, fully automatic. This is the fully automatic firearm. It's an AK-47. Primary feature is with one pull of the trigger, it will fire repeatedly. It'll fire until you either release the trigger or you expend all the rounds. Let me show you. This is banned, it's prohibited, and limited almost virtually to police and military use. A citizen cannot go into the store and purchase this. And yet, this is usually one that's displayed on your television set. These are usually the terms used by the news media. This is a semi-automatic firearm, a look-alike, but very much different. One pull of the trigger, you get one round. You get another round, you have to pull the trigger again. Let me show you that. If you notice, these two firearms look alike. They look very much alike. They operate entirely differently. This one is legal, semi-automatic. This one is an illegal, fully automatic. They look alike. Here, I have a hunting rifle. This is also semi-automatic and one used for hunting game. This also, being semi-automatic, fires one round with each pull of the trigger. If you notice, these two do not look alike, but they function alike. They are virtually the same, only cosmetically different. It's important to keep that in mind. A person will say this is fully automatic. The uninformed, most of the time the press, will refer to this as a fully automatic assault rifle and this as a fully automatic assault rifle. Please, by definition, this is the assault rifle. This is the only one that's fully automatic. It's prohibited for purchase in the United States except by police and law enforcement. A semi-automatic is just that, semi-automatic. One pull of the trigger, one round. That's a technology that's over 100 years old. If you ban that technology, you ban about 20 million firearms. Let's take a little closer look at them. This is the semi-automatic technology I referred to. You notice cosmetically there is a difference, but if you get to the working parts, the actual action, they're identical. In fact, let me show you just exactly how identical. This is the military look-alike. If you take off a cover, the working part compared to this hunting rifle, take off the cover, and the working parts are identical. Again, semi-automatic technology. One pull of the trigger, one round. Entirely different from the military fully automatic assault rifles. I'd like to show you how a simple cosmetic change could lend to the confusion in this attempt to try to define something as an assault rifle. This is a very popular, very common semi-automatic rifle. It's in a very popular and common caliber, that's caliber .223. I'd like you to watch while I just change the looks and see if you can't see how it might get a little confusing.
Officer Pyle is making a conversion right here from a sporting rifle, one commonly used in hunting and target shooting, to a military-style rifle. And the conversion he's making is more specifically to an assault style, like an AK-47. But what does assault-type rifle mean? Are we referring to the way it operates or the way it looks? The big problem is that guns aren't a great deal different in the way they operate. There are only a few types of actions, and all of the fully automatic weapons, the true assault rifles, are in the same category as heroin and cocaine. They're illegal. What Officer Pyle is putting together here is a fashionable type of drug weapon. The looks are fashionable in the drug world because this looks like a military assault rifle, but the actual working parts are nothing more than hunting rifle parts. This isn't an automatic rifle, but it looks like one. It's not a military weapon, but it looks like one. In the minds of many anti-gunners, the fact that a semi-automatic hunting rifle can be converted to look like this makes it a military type or an assault type rifle.
As you can see, just changing from wood to plastic makes a big difference in its appearance and probably would even change a person's opinion. And is that what makes a difference, whether it has a wooden stock or if it has a plastic stock? and maybe a bipod. The semi-automatic mechanism is common to millions of firearms, not just the rifle. I'm sure any of you shoot trap or skeet, you know that semi-automatic shotgun is very, very popular. For home defense or for target practice, the semi-automatic pistol is very, very popular. In fact, much more popular nowadays than the revolver is. Terms like assault rifle are hard to define. I don't know what an assault rifle is. I doubt very much if a member of BATF could tell you exactly what an assault rifle is.
Any type of legislation that's framed or drafted in relation to assault, what we're referring to here this morning is assault or paramilitary type weapons, there will be an inherent difficulty in drafting this. And the difficulty is that it's going to be very hard to draw a clear distinction between what we have as an assault type rifle and a semi-automatic sporting weapon. The assault weapon has a very menacing appearance to it, but this gun technologically, as far as how it fires, is pretty much the same as a sporting semi-automatic rifle, with the exception that this firearm has an exotic type appearance to it. Put a standard type stock on it and remove the bayonet mount, it would also even have the appearance of a sporting type weapon.
Frequently hear reference to the fact that a semi-automatic rifle can be easily converted to fully automatic. That's not true.
Why? Because these military-style assault weapons of today are not easily and readily convertible without extensive knowledge and modifications to the weapon and or a substitution of available parts. Now, in my 12 years within the unit, considering the enormous amount of firearms that we have taken into custody, and that's over 50,000, I would say, and these including the ones from the hardcore gangs and from the drug dealers, our unit has never, ever had one AK-47 converted, one Ruger Mini-14 converted, an H&K 91-93 never converted, an AR-180 never converted. So this media blitz of many of these assault weapons or supposedly military-style weapons are being converted to full automatic is not true.
So millions of law-abiding citizens own this semi-automatic technology. It would really be a shame if you legislated against that technology, and it would be really sad if that legislation was as a result of just some confusion and misunderstanding, and especially by mislabeling. I hope I've been able to help you with some of this information.
This is my .22 semi-automatic target and squirrel rifle. Here's my 12-gauge semi-automatic trap, skeet, and hunting shotgun. Both of these, you could say, have military-type actions. Both can be converted to look like assault weapons. So when we talk about banning assault-type weapons, are we talking about the way they look? That's the problem.
Linda Paniozak has sent us really not a recipe, but instructions on how to smoke and can fish. We get quite a few requests.
You can do this with almost any fish.
Any fish. Now, that's the first step you ever want to do is check to make sure that that jar does not have any nicks or little gouges out of it, because it will ruin your seal. And this is just salmon cut into chunks, and you go ahead and drop them into your jar.
Now you have bones in it there.
It should be deboned, but yes, I did see a couple of them go in. And then she calls for putting a little bit of oil into the jar. Now with salmon, you can or you don't have to. And then vinegar. Now, what's nice about this is you could really experiment here. You could add ketchup or mustard or barbecue sauce, just about anything you wanted to the jar.
Now why wouldn't you need to put oil in with salmon?
It's kind of oily anyway, but through the canning process, it won't be as oily as when you fry it or broil it. A lot of it does come out. And then go ahead and put your jars into the canner, and with a pressure canner, you never want to fill it completely over the top of the jars. An open kettle canner you do, but not with pressure, because it will cause the jars to blow up. Just fill it 2/3 full, and then go ahead and bring it up to 10 pounds of pressure. And it takes quite some time to bring a canner this size up to 10 pounds of pressure.
And that's all there is to it?
That's all there is to it, and it goes for about 90 minutes.
I wonder if the result here, Bob Garner will think, tastes like tuna fish.
Sure, it tastes like tuna, but salmon, I don't know. It just has a richer taste to it and more of an elegant taste than tuna. It's really great.
A little bit more body to it, I think, than tuna.
And a single serving is not nearly enough. I can tell you that right now.
Ken this in quarts, you know.
You know, I put this tomato on my sandwich here, and that's really overpowering almost.
Yeah, it is. I think
I mean, it's good. It's really good.
And just the plain fish is better.
So you didn't put any ketchup or anything like that in
Nothing. Just a little bit of oil and a little bit of vinegar.
this? You can monkey around with
Oh, sure,
canning.
you can add
can
just
put all
about anything
kinds
you
of
want.
things.
Mustard.
Onions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, geez, I'll bet
Barbecue
you.
sauce, anything.
Yeah, I'll bet you just a little garlic or something too would be. This is great.
If you chopped up some pickles and mixed it with this and the
Oh,
mayonnaise
yeah.
and all, it tastes like tuna salad.
Exactly. A little bit of celery. Yep.
It's a little less fishy than tuna. A little more elegant. That's what I like about salmon.
Smoked and canned fish is the name of the recipe. If you noticed, we used fresh fish, but smoked fish would taste great. The instructions are in the current issue of the Outdoor Digest magazine, along with all the recipes for March and April. And there's a page which covers the topics for the upcoming shows. If you catch a trophy, the Digest has an entry form for the Stroh's Hunting and Fishing Awards. It's free to enter, and a copy of the new March-April issue is also free for the asking. It features color on nearly every page, an array of articles on hunting, fishing, and shooting, as well as wildlife art, sporting knives, and wild game cookery. For a free copy, write to us at Fred Trost Outdoors Club, Box 1775, East Lansing, Michigan, 48826. Next week here on Michigan Outdoors, we're going to travel to Oscoda. Fish with taxidermist John Hook off his favorite pier in Oscoda. What do we catch? All kinds of things, and you're going to join us. We have a great recipe for broiled fish on English muffins, a real winner, and a lot more. So join us next week right here on Michigan Outdoors.